Hi everyone. I hope you enjoyed the little introduction we did yesterday on France. It was just an overview of everything really to do with France in a very short space of time. But as I said, in that we're going to be looking at different aspects in a bit more detail. And as well as that, like I always encourage you, go off and do your own research into something. Okay, if there's something about France that I haven't touched on that you might be interested in, go for it. Okay, you just go for it and do some research and send back to me what you found out. But today we're looking at the Tour de France. Okay, now this is from 2019. There's some specifics in this from the 2019 race, but it's not crucial to the whole PowerPoint. There isn't one for 2020. Now, the Tour de France has been going on for a long time, and as we know, it's a very famous cycling race, most famous in the world, and best professional cyclists take part in it, and I'm sure we've all heard of it. And before we get to the end, I want you to have a think, because at the start of the year we were talking a lot about the Tour de France, and News Today was featuring the Tour de France a lot for a particular reason, and I won't say it now, but I want you to hopefully figure it out and remember before the end, when I kind of remind you of why we were so interested in the Tour de France this year. Even though I personally would be interested in it every year, I really enjoy watching it. But we were particularly glued to it this year, and I wonder, can anybody remember that? So let's go on and have a look. Okay, there's a lot of reading in this, so I'll just read through it. Again, guys, you can pause it and have a read of it yourself, but I'll just read what it says here. The Tour de France is one of the world's largest annual bicycle events, held each July. Now this year, due to the COVID-19, it was held in September. Held each July and lasting for 3 weeks, it covers more than 3,300 kilometers of flat, hilly and mountainous terrain across France and neighbouring countries. I'm going to come back to that in a few minutes. The race started in 1903, and this year will be the 107th race just took part. Remember, this is 2019 we're looking at. So the Tour de France that has just taken place back in September was the 107th. The overall winner of the race is the cyclist who has ridden the whole route in the lowest accumulated time, in the quickest time over the whole 3 weeks. Okay, so there's not just one big flat out race. 3 weeks, many stages, and it's, you know, if you take 2 hours one day and an hour the next day, you're up to 3 hours, and whoever can do it in the least amount of time overall, accumulatively, will be the winner. The route for the Tour de France changes every year, but usually finishes at the Champs-Élysées. Okay, the Champs-Élysées, which is the large avenue that leads up to the Arc de Triomphe, which we would have looked at yesterday in Paris, as it has done every year since 1975. So that's where it ends. It's a big, massive event of the Tour de France, finishing at the Champs-Élysées. So each day, the winner is awarded a coloured jersey to wear for the next stage. So it's fun to spot all the different jerseys. In 2019, each jersey will have a different design, including images of landscapes, buildings, and past race winners. Okay, so depending on what part of the Tour de France you're winning, you get a certain jersey, because there's different. You can win for different types of things. Now, before we go on, back at this section here, it said that it is in France and neighbouring countries. Okay, so you'll be interested to know, a lot of times it starts in Belgium or even England, but in 1998, I remember it vividly as a child. In 1998, the Tour de France actually begun in Ireland. Okay, it actually begun in Ireland because we have, I think it was in recognition of two very famous cyclists. We had Stephen Roche back in the 80s. I think it was 1987. I have it here in the computer. I'll look it up now. Stephen Roche, whose son Nicholas Roche is a cyclist nowadays. But Stephen Roche actually won the Tour de France, the only Irishman to win the Tour de France outright. He won it in 1987. I'll double check that now in a second. I could be wrong, but the dates aren't very important. Late 80s. He won, and he won what was known as the Triple Crown as well. He won the Giro d'Italia, the Tour de France, and I will look up what the other one is. I'm a fan of the Giro and the Tour de France, but my knowledge of professional cycling would kind of end there. But as I said, in 1998, I remember it so well, the Tour de France coming to Ireland. I think it was in Ireland for 2 stages, and I have here a news report I found on it. Let's see, 16 years. And as we can see, I'm sure lots of you will recognize this bridge. Okay, and as you can see here, the peloton is the main pack of cyclists, the big bunch of cyclists. Obviously there's some people that are straggling behind, or maybe 1 or 2 people that are firing on ahead, but the peloton, hold on. Apologies for that, guys. I don't know what that. Sorry, there was a technical difficulty there. Right. Sorry. Yes, I'm back. So the peloton is the main group of cyclists, and they were going through Tallaght. And I remember vividly when I saw this picture, memories came flooding back of it when I was a child. I would have been 9, but I remember those flags so vividly. So it brought back great memories, and it went through Tallaght and Wicklow. There's a gorgeous picture here, the Wicklow Gap. Okay, you might see that if you're heading up to Glendalough. Okay, so really, really, really gorgeous views. You can see the amount of cyclists. And as I said here, Stephen Roche, let's see the date exactly, was I correct? Yeah, 1987, he won the Tour de France, the Giro d'Italia, and the World Road Race Championship. There you go, okay. And also Sean Kelly was another very famous Irish cyclist, and he won the green, so the yellow jersey is the jersey worn by the overall winner, and the overall leader of the Tour de France, and the green jersey, which Sean Kelly won, okay, is the winner of the sprinting competition and the time trials. Okay, so there's another clue as to why we would have been glued to the Tour de France this year. Okay, so the history of the race. During the late 19th century, cycling became a very popular hobby for many people. As time went on, organised bike racing was introduced, and professional cycling became especially popular in France. Sport papers such as Le Vélo, which means the bike, sprung up to cover cycling stories in depth. L'Auto, excuse my pronunciation again, was a smaller rival paper which was desperate to increase popularity. So one of its journalists, I won't even try, Géo Lefebvre, proposed the idea of organising a big cycle race through France. Very good. Okay. On the 1st of July 1903, 60 cyclists, just 60, set off from that cafe in the suburbs of Paris. They covered 2,428 kilometres in a circular route through 6 stages. 18 days later, 21 of the cyclists made the finish line back in Paris. The physical effort was simply too great for many of the competitors, and they just gave up. The first ever winner was Maurice Garin, the Tour de France was born. The yellow jersey, as I said earlier, is the jersey worn by the outright winner, was introduced as a prize for the winner in 1919 due to the fact that L'Auto newspaper was printed on yellow paper. That's very interesting. I didn't know that. The race has taken place each year since then, except for wartime. As the Tour became more popular, the course became longer and more challenging mountain climbs were introduced. Okay, so the jerseys, instead of winning medals or awards, the cyclists participating in the Tour de France win different coloured jerseys. On the 19th of July 2019, okay, so we don't have one for this year's, as I said, or last year's at this stage. It will be exactly 100 years since the first yellow jersey was introduced. So we have the yellow jersey, the oldest and most sought after prize. That's the big one. That's the one every person who grows up cycling dreams of winning. The yellow jersey is awarded to the rider with the quickest overall time. The green jersey is awarded to the best sprinter and time trialist. So these are little competitions that take place usually on flat surfaces. So, because sometimes the race will be very flat, okay, going through towns and cities, and time trials is where they would do laps of certain perhaps cities and towns. Whereas there's some stages that have mountains, and they're really steep mountains, and someone who's a really good sprinter might not be a very good, as they call, climber. So that's why the yellow jersey is the best overall cyclist. So the green jersey, the person who wins the green jersey might not do very well in, say, the mountain stages. Okay? And we know Sean Kelly, and I was won this back in the 80s. Stephen Roach won the yellow jersey back in the 80s. And do we remember Shane Bennett? Shane Bennett from Tipperary won it this year. Well, in 2020, Shane Bennett. We heard a lot about him on News Today. So the polka dot jersey, okay, the polka dot jersey is awarded to the best climber or the king of the mountains. As I said, the yellow jersey will be a mix of these two guys together, but the king of the mountains. And the white jersey is awarded to the best young rider, so under 26 years old. Whoever does best under that age gets the white jersey. So they're very sought after. And if you're leading, you don't get the jersey on the last day. You wear the jersey as long as you're leading. So after the second day, even after the first day, whoever is coming first on the first day gets the yellow jersey, and to see how long you can keep it. Okay, each year it begins in a different place, often in one of France's neighbouring countries. It started in Brussels in Belgium in 2019. Okay, and as I told you, it started in Ireland in 1998. And here's all the different stages. There's 21 stages covering almost 3,500 kilometers, and each stage is a whole day. Okay, 7 flat stages, 5 hilly stages, 7 mountain stages, plus 1 individual and 1 team time trial. And I say the time trial is a loop, okay, that to do over and over again to see who can do it the fastest. Okay, and here's some of the teams. You can pause this and have a look. Okay, so Team Sky were a very famous team as well. Okay. Okay, 2014, it begun in Leeds in Yorkshire, and you can pause it there as well, guys, and have a read of these. These are just small little facts at the end. Okay, Bradley Wiggins was the first ever British rider to win in 2012. Okay, and Chris Froome won it a lot of times, 2013, 15, 16 and 17. But the Irish bet them to it with Stephen Roach, and then of course Sean Kelly winning the green jersey, and Sam Bennett. Did I say Shane Bennett? I did. It's Sam Bennett. I apologise to Sam himself. Sam Bennett, of course, not Shane Bennett. Sam Bennett. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, if you have time, apologies for that break in the middle there. I don't know what happened. Anyway, I got back on the bike, so to say. But if you want to write a diary entry as if you were a spectator, that would be fabulous. Bye.